Hi, I'm Raylyn Worcester, and this is Spreading the Word. That's word with a capital W, as in the written word, the Bible, and the Word made flesh, Jesus Christ. I'm about to read to you part 9 from And Then the Trumpet, the exciting sequel to Without Faith. When we left off, we saw that new car dealerships are about to open throughout the nation, blessing those who have been rescued and giving the rest of the people in the nation a vehicle once more. We've also seen that Connie Greenbaugh found out where Eric was being held and has decided to make a new change in her life. And Gloria wrote a letter to the general explaining how she came to be the person she is today and showing the general how he can have that as well. So, this is where we pick up in part 9 of And Then the Trumpet. A pleasantly tired, paint splattered couple sat on the newly hung porch swing and admired their work. The old gardener's shack now resembled a mini cottage. The old peeling gray paint had been scraped off, the wood sanded, and a fresh coat of springtime mint with an ivory trim took its place. Jeb sat with his arm around Imelda on the gently moving swing. He leaned down and kissed a splotch of paint on her nose. She giggled and lifted her face to receive another kiss just a little further south. These little kisses were common now. They were a couple. Neither could remember ever being happier. Jeb spent a lot of time at Cottagette, their pet name for Imelda's new place these days. Together they'd turned the garden tools room into a proper bedroom for Imelda. Jeb had installed new lighting and a ceiling fan in the living room, while Imelda sewed curtains for the window. It felt homey and it felt theirs, and a lot less lonely than Jeb's place in Indianapolis. He didn't spend nights here. Jeb and Imelda were both too old-fashioned and too moral for that, but most days found him at Cottagette, and the two spent many evenings preparing and eating dinner with Gloria in the cottage. Tomorrow was going to be a big day. Gloria's dealerships opened tomorrow, and the relief foundations, which were still busy open to close, would be even busier tomorrow, redeeming vehicle vouchers. Imelda was going to work with Dylan at the Relief for the Rescued building in Indianapolis to help out, and right after dinner tonight, Jeb was going to head for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He was going to trade in the staff car the general had allowed him to continue using after retirement for one of his own. They'd sit there just a few more minutes, the couple decided, and enjoy the fruits of their labor before Imelda headed inside to shower away the paint, and Jeb headed home to do the same and pack for his overnight trip. They'd meet back at Gloria's cottage at 5:30. They'd all watch Sam's address on NNNA at 6, then have a nice dinner together. Imelda was making chicken piccata. This relationship has a lot of perks, Jeb thought. Imelda's cooking was definitely one of them. Connie walked around the paint section of the hardware store, trying to decide which color was going to sufficiently cheer up her apartment. None of them felt right. Connie loved color. She remembered the time during their year on the streets that she and Teddy were walking by the Art Institute of Chicago and saw a school class of kids their age entering the building with their teacher on a field trip. Teddy grabbed her hand and they inserted themselves into the group and toured the museum. Connie's favorite painting was A Pathway in Monet's Garden by Claude Monet. She stood in front of it for over 5 minutes, memorizing every detail until Teddy pulled her away to catch up with the class. Over the years, she would find herself recreating the painting on the inside of notebook covers or on scratch paper. She didn't do half bad. Suddenly, Connie had an idea. She grabbed a half-gallon of primer and headed to the register. She carried the primer and put it in the basket of her bicycle. Then she pedaled to Michael's in Midtown Plaza. There she would find the colors she needed. What could possibly cheer up her apartment more than a pathway in Monet's garden on her living room wall? "Dylan, so good to see you again," Janet Webster said, giving the younger man a hug. "Come in, come in. You will be staying for dinner, won't you?" Dylan nodded. "I thought we would watch JT's program together, eat something, then Richard and I could take off by 8 o'clock and still get back to Indianapolis in time to get enough rest for work tomorrow." Dylan had driven to Grove City, Ohio to pick up Richard so he could redeem his vehicle voucher at the foundation in the morning. But he was also excited to see Janet and Sabina again. Janet felt like a mother to Dylan, and Sabina the little sister he never had. As if the mere thought of her called Sabina into the room, she suddenly burst through the doorway, ran to Dylan, and wrapped her arms around his waist. "Dylan, Dad said you were coming to pick him up. Come here, I have something to show you," she said all in one breath, grabbing his hand and tugging him toward her room. Dylan laughed out loud. How he'd missed this girl. I'm coming," he assured her. "Sabina, this is amazing," Dylan said as he looked at the computer screen. Sabina had been hired by Christian way before he'd become vice president to host a web page he'd created called Pro-Life Abortion Recovery. On it, Sabina shared her story of becoming pregnant at age 12, having an abortion, and the emptiness and regret she'd experienced since. She shared finding forgiveness and peace in Christ and showed other women who had been in her shoes how they could find the same. Before the raids, the resistance was an underground movement, and this web page and all the other secret pages were by necessity encrypted. Now, encryption was no longer necessary, and the web page was available to everyone. Sabina's readership exploded, and her little job had grown into a full-blown outreach. "You are going to do mighty things for God," he told her. "You already have." It was after reading Sabina's webpage that Dylan himself came to Christ. Sabina smiled up at Dylan. His approval meant more to her than that of thousands of followers any day. "Hey guys, NNNA is coming on," Janet hollered from the other room. Sabina and Dylan walked hand in hand into the living room. "Good evening, North America. This is JT Headlock with all the now news in the nation, reporting live from the White House. Tonight, President Adamson has vital news that will affect every citizen in the United States of America. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Samuel Adamson." There was the sound of clapping in the background as the camera focused in on Sam Adamson sitting at the resolute desk in the Oval Office. "My fellow Americans," he started in a warm, sincere voice that in itself inspired confidence. "There have been many changes in the government of our nation since I came into office, but that's the reason you hired me for this job, isn't it? I'm here to bring the change needed to restore the nation to the great country it once was and can be again. Well, the next step in that journey is here, and it's a big one. But bear with me, the advantages are going to be big as well. Tomorrow, is November 1st, 2034. Tomorrow, as in the past year and a half, the universal basic income will be added to each adult citizen's freedom cards for the last time. He paused a moment for that to sink in. Sam looked directly in the camera with a fatherly smile and continued. The universal basic income is a monthly stipend given to every adult citizen in the nation in place of income. This program has cost this nation trillions of dollars that would be better spent elsewhere. I'll share my plans for the redistribution of these funds shortly. The citizens of New America were bought and paid for by President Naylor and the federal government. They lived in his apartments, rode his bicycles, and lived off money he gave them in the form of credits that he could and did take away whenever the urge hit him. The citizens of the United States of America are not kept and controlled by their president and federal government. They are responsible citizens, able to take responsibility for their own lives. They buy their homes, drive their own vehicles, and support themselves with money they earned through the use of their talents and ingenuity. They don't need the government's corrupt monetary system. They need a new one that will give them their independence back. That's what I am instituting today. Beginning tomorrow, the citizens of the United States of America will use whatever currency is agreed upon by both parties involved in a transaction. They may use Freedom Card credits, Bitcoin, gold, silver, labor, or barter. The government has not produced paper money or coin in a long time and will not be doing so now. Anything else of value may be used as payment as long as both parties agree. Employers may pay employees in whichever medium the employee agrees to at the time of hire. It is an honest and fair system and one the government can't manipulate. The UBI will be added to Freedom Cards tomorrow for the last time to allow cardholders time to find jobs, giving them another source of income. Freedom Card credits will be valid as long as they remain on the cards and there is someone willing to take them. When the credits run out or no one wants to take them as payment, they will cease to be valid currency. Now, here's the exciting part, Sam said. His demeanor radiated excitement. It was contagious. The viewers were excited too, and they didn't even know why yet. The trillions of dollars we save by discontinuing the UBI will be used to do great things for our nation. I've been in contact with all of the governors of all of the states. The monies recovered from the UBI program will be returned to the states, apportioned by population. They've all agreed upon what they will use these funds for. The first use will be the creation of thousands of new jobs. The processing center in Oklahoma City and every detention camp will be bulldozed and removed piece by piece until not a shred of them exists. Single-family homes and city parks will be erected in their place. This venture will provide jobs for construction workers and laborers, city planners, and landscape technicians. They will be hiring child care providers for the homes the First Lady has founded for the children whose parents were killed in the camps. Counselors and therapists will be hired to undo psychological damage done in the camps. Funds previously allotted to the UBI will be used to provide free dental care for all who suffered tooth loss in the torture of Fort Savage. They will be hiring dentists and denturists to provide these services. And this is just the start. You can do a lot with trillions of dollars. Know this, my fellow Americans. Change is uncomfortable, even difficult at times, but in this case, necessary and worthwhile. You are getting your independence back. This nation will be great again, and it will be the United States citizens that make it great. We can do this. I'm just one of you, and we will do it together. God bless you, and God bless these United States of America. The camera moved from the president to JT now as he wrapped up his segment. Thank you, President Adamson. Exciting things coming down the pike, folks. I will keep you posted on all the changes as they develop every day at 6 and 6. For Now News North America, this is JT Hadlock. JT out. The dark man in the dark suit, in the dark penthouse suite, angrily stabbed the button on the remote, cutting off the TV, making the darkness in the room complete as the light emanating from it faded. The room was almost as dark as his soul. The only thing discernible in the room now was the plume of cigar smoke encircling his head. 6 years. 6 years of hard work down the drain. The master was not happy. Well, he didn't blame him. He wasn't happy either. The future had looked so, well, bright. He chuckled at his own wit and took another puff, releasing the smoke into the darkness. He could have served a second term, but it suited the master's plans better to put the drag queen and his husband in power. It was a stroke of genius, he had to admit. It polarized the nation along the LGBTQ plus lines and shined a light on Christian intolerance. From there, it was an easy hop to establish the detention camps. Buying the Island Lake Resort and devising the tortures on the little island had been especially fun. Yes, that had all been him. Spoon-fed to the puppet in the White House, who spit it out as if it had been his original thought. It would have been his first one. The dark man chuckled and pulled on the cigar again. It was he who had come up with the universal basic income and freedom card system. His idea to turn it off for infractions and reinstate it at an exorbitant cost. When his former military attaché, Hasai Singh, had come crying to him that the president was unhappy with his progress with Operation Roundup. Okay, the puppet had one original thought. It was he who had come up with the solution. Singh had agreed to let him call the shots in exchange for the promotion the promised solution would surely bring, and indeed had. And then he came on the scene and ruined everything. The dark man angrily ground out his cigar on the arm of the chair in which he'd been sitting. The master had not been happy that the patriots and Christians had been able to organize and mobilize without his knowledge. It wouldn't happen again, the dark man had assured his master. It couldn't. He knew the fate that awaited him if it did. This time, there were precautions in place, people in place. He still had his mole in the White House and had his eye on someone he could groom to do his dirtiest dirty work, someone who would relish it. Feeling better, the dark man rose from the chair, put on his overcoat, and walked out into the night. He needed more cigars. You could have heard a pin drop in the Webster's living room as Now News North America went off the air. Sabina was the first to break the silence. Cavities? Too much candy? Oh, Daddy! In anguish, Sabina cried as she wrapped her arms around her father and buried her head in his shoulder. Now, Richard said, stroking his daughter's hair. My teeth aren't in the best condition anyway. Now I get new ones free, and I can't wait to eat steak again. I'm getting tired of mashed potatoes. Sabina smiled. Her dad's life would be getting back to normal with the addition of new teeth. The past was past and couldn't be undone. She was happy for him. Janet called everyone into the dining room. Dinner was ready. She'd made enchiladas. Over dinner, Dylan said, I've got something for you guys to think about. With the UBI going away, Richard is going to need a job. Sabina is making a little, but you can't live on that. I manage GV Enterprises. They have many ventures and businesses and require a lot of employees. I could get Richard and even Janet, if she so desired, on with them if you all would consider moving to Indianapolis. Something to think about, he said, taking another bite of enchilada. Janet and Richard shared a look. They would certainly consider it. That was delicious, Janet, Dylan said, wiping his mouth and putting his napkin on his plate. I hate to eat and run, but Richard and I are going to need to hit the road here pretty quick. Richard excused himself and went into his room to get his overnight bag. Dylan hugged both the girls and assured them that Richard would be home soon with a new car. 15 minutes later, the two men were on the road, headed for Indiana. They'd only been on the road 20 minutes when Dylan's phone alerted an incoming text. His phone was synced to the car stereo and set to text to voice when he drove. Siri read the text out loud, and he would be able to speak a response as he continued driving. Group video conference for all rescued rides and relief for the rescued managers in 10 minutes. GV. Dylan sighed. He should have known this was coming after Sam's announcement this evening. We just passed a sign that said rest area in 5 miles, Richard said helpfully. I'm sorry, Richard. Hopefully it won't take long. Richard shrugged. Duty calls. Good evening, team, Gloria said, as her face appeared along with 6 others on the split screen. Everyone responded in kind. Tomorrow is a big day for us. Rescued Rides managers, is everything ready to go for your grand openings tomorrow? Javier from the Henderson, Nevada store said, Our tube man isn't working, but I don't think we need him. I think the president's advertising is more than sufficient, and our location is easy to find. Gloria nodded. Agreed. Return it in the morning. Anyone else? Nope. We're ready. Been preparing for this for weeks. Okay. Here's the procedure. When a customer finds the car they want, you look up the current value in the last Kelley Blue Book printed. That would be the 2032 version. Everyone have copies? All the faces on the screen nodded. Use the good condition column for the year model to determine price. Even if the vehicle looks to be in excellent condition, they've been sitting for over a year until the raids and haven't been serviced. Take the price in the good column and round up to whole thousands. For example, if it says $11,895, your price is $12,000. You cut that price in half and charged the customer $6,000. Does everyone understand? They all knew this. They'd been trained on this part. Gloria was just assuring herself that all her staff were prepared. She continued, "Now, this is the reason for the call. Payment. We will still be taking Freedom Card credits until December 1st. When the cards are no longer receiving the UBI, we will no longer take them. Do all of you managers know how to convert Freedom Card credits to Bitcoin at the end of each day?" Most of the faces nodded. Katie from Sioux Falls, South Dakota said, "I know the procedure, but I've never done it. I'm a little nervous I'll screw it up." "I'll call her about 7:15 South Dakota time and walk her through it," Rob from Relief for the Rescued in Tucson, Arizona responded. Gloria and Katie both said thanks in unison. Gloria continued, "We will also be taking Bitcoin. Do you all have your business wallets ready to go? And do you know how to take payment from the customers' wallets?" They all nodded. "In addition, we will be taking gold and silver in 1-ounce pieces. Have you all received and posted the exchange rate cards? These are dry erase. Each morning, the manager will need to look up the current rate and write it on the card before the business opens for the day. We will not be giving change. If they want to buy a $13,000 vehicle and have a gold piece worth $24,000, they will have to get it exchanged for silver or Bitcoin or some other medium first. However, we can take mixed payment. If they want to buy a $26,000 vehicle with a $24,000 gold piece, they may pay the remaining $2,000 with another currency. Any questions so far?" she asked. Hearing no response, she continued, "That brings us to labor and barter. Each supplier can choose which currencies they will take and which they will not. We will not be selling vehicles on credit. Vehicles must be paid in full before being removed from the lot. We will not be taking barter. Susie cannot pay for her car with a year's worth of her famous boysenberry pies." That brought a few chuckles, but everyone understood. Gloria continued, "That brings us to labor. Did everyone receive the green punch cards I sent in the package with the exchange rate cards? Good. We have overflow yards throughout the country from which we will replenish our lots as cars sell out. The Relief for the Rescued lots will be replenished from these overflow lots as well. Let's say someone is $2,000 short of the car they want to purchase. They can ferry cars from the overflow lots to the dealerships at the rate of $1,000 per trip. They make 2 trips for which they receive 1 punch on the green card per trip and turn in the card, and it represents the $2,000 they needed to purchase their car. By the same token, you have someone who wants to buy a $10,000 vehicle and they have no credits, no Bitcoin, no gold, no silver. They may make 10 trips ferrying vehicles and turn in a card with 10 punches as payment for their vehicle. Again, vehicles do not leave the lot until paid for in full. Everyone understand how this works?" Everyone nodded. "One last thing for the rescued rides people. Jillian in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, this is for you. A man named Jeb Bingham will be coming into your location driving a 2031 Toyota Corolla. Look it up in the Blue Book, and He may exchange it straight across for any vehicle he chooses of equal or lesser value. The Corolla will become part of your inventory. I have a new title being sent to you, and you may sell it as soon as it arrives. Okay? Understood, Jillian replied. Okay, rescued rides managers may exit the meeting. Thank you all for all you do. Have a successful and blessed day tomorrow. Any further questions and issues should be directed to Dylan Williams. He is your GV Enterprises representative. I just wanted to personally touch base before we open up our new dealerships. You were all given Dylan's phone number when you were hired, but in case you haven't met him, Dylan, wave to the people. Dylan waved. The people waved back, and then the rescued rides managers signed off. That left Gloria, Dylan, and Rob on the call. Alone now, the conversation became more casual. How are my favorite assistants? Good, Dylan responded. I'm just driving back from Ohio with Richard Webster. We should be back in Indianapolis around midnight. Gloria grimaced. Sorry for the delay. I thought it was necessary to include you in this call. It was, no problem. Part of the job is your administrator, right? Gloria agreed. That's why she made Dylan second in command. And you, Rob, how are things in Tucson? Good to be home and excited to be managing the foundation here. Excited for tomorrow. And that brings us back to business, Gloria said. Tomorrow, the rescued will be coming in to redeem their vouchers. They will need to take a number like anyone coming in for benefits. And when their number is called, present their voucher at the cubicle. The volunteer at the cubicle will punch the vehicle number on the voucher into the computer to get the vehicle description and its lot location, and send a runner out to retrieve the car, who will pull it around the front for the customer. Have you both hired title clerks to fill out the titles and take them to the DMV, like I asked you to? Both men nodded. Last thing, your lots are going to start to empty quickly. You each have the phone numbers to the overflow lots. Each lot has drivers and car carriers who will ferry vehicles to your lot. At the end of each day, call the lot closest to your location and request the same number of cars as left your lot that day. Rob, contact Dylan with questions and issues. Dylan, call me tomorrow night after closing to report how everything went. Any questions? Neither had any, so the three said their goodbyes and signed off. Within 10 minutes, Dylan was back on the road. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. The next 30 days went by in a blur. The streets were beginning to fill up with cars. People were getting jobs. The rescued were starting to remember what life was like before the camps and began to feel like a part of society again. The nation was starting to get its confidence back. Another experiencing a boost of confidence was Constance Greenbaugh. She'd finished a pathway in Monet's garden and sat for a few days studying it. Just looking at it made her happy. She decided she needed to share that happiness and invited a couple of neighbors she'd previously not met over for coffee. The women loved the mural and asked Connie to paint one for each of them. The building super went into one of the apartments to fix a leak in the bathroom, and upon seeing the masterpiece replicated on the living room wall, requested Connie beautify the outside of his building. He gave her a year's free rent to do it. For the first time in her life, Connie was happy and fulfilled and making her own way in life. If only the same thing could be said for Trevor. He'd relocated to Los Angeles to be near his kids. only to find that they preferred to spend their time with their mom and her new live-in boyfriend. Tony was a nightclub bouncer, bulky and intimidating. He strongly suggested that Trevor not come around, as the kids and Sherry wanted nothing to do with him. How dare he, Trevor thought angrily. He had moved clear across the country to see his children. He had a right to see them, and by God, he was going to see them. It wasn't difficult to learn where his boys went to school or what time it got out. When the bell rang at 3 p.m., Trevor would be there to greet his kids. The bell rang, the doors opened, and middle school children came pouring out the door in droves. Trevor spied his youngest among the mix and yelled, "Petey! Hey, Petey, over here!" "Dad!" The just turned 11-year-old tow-headed boy in the preppy shirt and khakis ran to Trevor and wrapped his arms around his waist. "How you doing, buddy?" Trevor asked, ruffling his son's hair. Just then, Trevor's older son, 14-year-old Max, walked over. "Max, hi, I missed you," Trevor said, reaching for his older boy. "It's Maxwell," the boy said, taking a step back and grabbing his brother's arm. "Come on, Peter, you have soccer practice." "Soccer? Great! I'd love to come and watch. What position do you play?" Trevor asked Petey, who now stood away from his dad with his brother. "The same position he played every time he asked you to watch his games in Indiana," Max answered with a look of disgust on his face. "Come on, Peter. There's Mom and Tony." He waved a hand in the air to the couple scanning the crowd of kids. "Gotta go, Dad," Petey said with an air of resignation. He loved his dad, but his brother was right. His dad had made a lot of promises and hadn't kept any of them. Why should it be different now? Here. "I'll see you boys later," Trevor yelled after them as the boys headed toward Sherry and Tony. "I don't think so," Maxwell said, turning to face his father with a determined look on his face. "Petey?" "I don't think so either," his youngest son said. Trevor saw a moment of regret register in Petey's eyes before his face steeled into a facsimile of his brother's. The two walked away. Trevor shut his eyes and sank to the grass of the school lawn. His world had just ended. Trevor went home and sat alone in his exorbitantly expensive California apartment. He'd gotten a 2-bedroom unit in anticipation of his boys spending nights there on occasion. It had been beyond the top end of his budget, but he figured it would be worth it. Now he would probably have to negotiate for a 1-bedroom or studio apartment, which would be more budget friendly, if there was even one available. He felt his spirits sinking even lower. Speaking of budget, better check the balance on my Freedom card, he thought. Between the deposit and the first few months' rent on the apartment, groceries, some furnishings to make the place homey for the boys, he'd spent a lot lately. Trevor pulled up the UBI website on his phone and punched in the numbers on the back of his card. Balance 26.94 credits, the screen read. "What? That can't be right!" Trevor shouted to the empty apartment. He had a sense of deja vu as he suddenly remembered the day so long ago in the grocery store when his Freedom card had been declined for the gallon of milk he was trying to buy for his kids. That was the day that had started all of this. The day he decided to do what he could to fight back against this unjust system where someone could arbitrarily take away your credits. Now it had happened again, but this time it was Sam who had taken them. Uncle Sam, whom Trevor had fed the footage from Gloria's phone of the camps and detention center. Samuel Adamson wouldn't be president of the United States if not for me, Trevor thought nastily. And here he was stealing away my livelihood. Trevor had a couple $1,000s worth of Bitcoin in his virtual wallet. His buddy Dylan had taught him about and paid him in Bitcoin when Trevor helped him re-record some earbuds for the resistance. He wasn't destitute. He even believed in abolishing the corrupt UBI and Freedom Card system, in principle, but today, December 1st, 2034, he felt robbed. Again. He'd expected to see the amount that was always added to his card on the first of the month, and it wasn't there. And it was Sam's fault. Trevor was angry, and he was depressed. Nothing was going right here in California. What was he going to do with $26.94 in credits? It wouldn't buy much, he knew. Trevor grabbed his bike and headed out the door to the local liquor store. Hopefully, it would buy enough liquor to help him forget what a dung heap his life had become in such a short time. Preston knocked on the Oval Office door. "Come in," President Adamson responded. "Sir, we have a situation at the front gate. There is a group protesting the abolishing of the UBI. Sam nodded. Finally, he thought. He'd suggested reinstating the Constitution, using the Bible as a guide in government, reinstating the use of vehicles, ownership of guns, giving the power of government back to the states, all without opposition. It wasn't feeling real. He didn't relish opposition to his plans, but it wasn't realistic not to have any, was it? Okay, now it was time not to be just a lawgiver, but a president. "Are they hurting anyone or obstructing anything?" Sam asked. "No," Preston responded. "They are allowing people in and out of the gates, and no one has been threatened or accosted." Sam nodded again. "Good. The people have the right to protest the things they don't agree with. Let them be." Preston stood silently looking at Sam for a moment. When the president offered nothing further, he said, "You don't want to do anything about it, sir?" Sam set down the paper he'd been reading and looked back at Preston once more. "We will not tell the people what they can or cannot say, or arrest them for disagreeing with us. What do you suggest I do, Preston?" "Well, something, sir. You can't appear to be ignoring their concerns, and the press is out there with them." Sam sighed. "Okay," he capitulated. "I will prepare a statement. You can send the press secretary out there with it." "Very good, sir. I will send Evan up to see you." Sam nodded his approval, and Preston left the room in search of the press secretary. 20 minutes later, Press Secretary Evan Prouse strolled across the front lawn to the gate. J.T. Hadlock was there, of course. This was news, and this was his town. He spied Evan coming across the lawn. He knew Evan from the times he'd shot NNNA on location at the White House. He liked the man and knew that he represented the views of the president. J.T. hollered over the chanting of the picketers. "Hush, everyone! It's a message from the president." The chanting stopped, and picket signs were lowered as the protesters gave their attention to the press secretary. They were eager to hear what he would say. J.T. nudged his cameraman, who trained his lens on Evan's face as he began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, A statement from the President of the United States. He cleared his throat, not because it needed clearing, but to mark the end of his introduction and the beginning of the President's statement. My fellow citizens, I am pleased to see you exercising your First Amendment right to freedom of speech. I would never stop a peaceful protest, which is well within your rights as citizens of this great land, and you are more than welcome to continue your protest after my statement if you so desire. Evan stopped a moment as murmurs of astonishment around him rose. Let him finish, JT said, holding up a hand. The press secretary nodded his thanks in JT's direction and continued. For too long, this nation allowed things to simply happen around them with no say in the matter whether they agreed with it or not. You have a right to your say, to your opinion, whether or not it agrees with mine. But talk is cheap. It accomplishes very little. Instead of protesting that with which you disagree, I would suggest doing something to change the situation. You are not protesting the abolishing of the universal basic income. You know it was a flawed, manipulative system. You are protesting that you suddenly have no income. I happen to know of over 50 businesses in our area with help wanted signs in their windows. Do something. Change your situation. Lay down your signs and go respond to one of theirs. Take responsibility for your own income, finances, and life. You don't need a government handout. Get your independence back. Or continue to protest. That's your right. The choice is up to you. God bless you, and God bless this United States of America. With that, Evan turned on his heel and walked back up the lawn toward the White House. JT's camera watched as, one by one, protesters began laying down their signs and walking away. 10 minutes after Evan had returned to the White House, there only remained 3 picketers at the gate. These were too lazy to work and felt something was owed to them. JT had no respect for these. He and his cameraman packed up and left. They'd gotten their story, and it was over now. The 3 picketers chanted for another 15 minutes, but their hearts weren't really in it. Without the support of the others, it just felt like work. They laid down their signs, and they left too. The protest was over less than an hour after it started. And part 9 of And Then the Trumpet is over too. I hope you're enjoying the story so far. Please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story and Without Faith with your friends and family. And in that way, you too are helping to spread the word. Thank you, and God bless.